I'm recording this in the office behind the front desk. The one with the squeaky swivel chair and the busted mini-fridge that hums like somebody breathing in their sleep. If you ever find this file, if you ever pass exit 51 and see the crooked blue sign for Hillcrest Motel flickering like a bad heartbeat, keep driving, don't slow down, don't check in. And if you do check in because you're too tired or too drunk or too stubborn to listen, then please hear me. No matter how curious you are, no matter what the night clerk says or doesn't say, no matter what you think you saw on the hallway, while do not take room 300. It isn't supposed to exist. The first thing they teach you on night shift isn't how to work the register or how to reprogram a keycard when the mag strip gets temperamental. It's how to sit perfectly still for long stretches without going insane. You watch the moths burn themselves out on the neon of open. You watch the ice machine stutter and spit like an old man trying to cough up a secret. You watch men with wedding rings check in under names that aren't theirs. You watch women with eyes like boarded windows pay cash and ask questions you can't answer. You learn to be a witness and nothing more. The manager here is named Ellis. He has a thin silver mustache that never quite lines up with his lip, as if it was glued on in a hurry. He warned me about the register before he warned me about the creeps. Don't ask about 313, he said my second night, tapping the guest ledger with a nicotine-stained finger. We don't have one. We never had one. If somebody asks you, say we go from 312 to 314, and if they don't like it, they can keep driving. I laughed like it was a joke, and he didn't laugh back. He slid a ring of master keys across the counter. One of the brass tags flashed a little different in the lobby light, older metal, more worn. The numbers rubbed to a ghost of themselves. I reached for it, and he moved the whole ring away. Don't touch the extras unless there's a fire, he said quietly. And if there's a fire, you pull the alarm and you run. I didn't sleep after that shift. I lay in the efficiency apartment they give you out back, listening to the refrigerator tick as it cooled and the highway drummed like a river. And I tried not to think about the number we skipped. Try not to think about something, and that's all your brain does. Don't think of a pink elephant. Don't think of a locked door that everyone pretends isn't there. The first person who asked about 313 was a woman who wore her coat like armor and kept her purse clamped under one arm like it was full of blood instead of money. She was polite the way people are when they're one breath from breaking. Is 313 open tonight? She asked. Not, do you have it? Not, does it exist? Open. We don't have a 313, I said. Careful, waiting for her to correct herself. She didn't. She only nodded as if she'd expected that answer all along, and signed for 207. I watched her on the camera monitor carry her suitcase to the stairwell. Then I watched the monitor freeze, then blur, then snap back, and she was gone beyond the blind corner where the hall makes its long turn, toward the ice machine and the vending machines with the melted chocolate that refreezes in strange whirls like fingerprints. A minute later, less, maybe 30 seconds, I heard a door close somewhere it shouldn't have closed. Metal on metal, latch and strike, a solid sound, a door that had been used so many times it knew how to be quiet. When I went up to check, the whole carpet seemed to rise a little under my shoes, where the seam ran, like a sleeping animal raising its ribs to breathe. The wall sconce outside 311 buzzed and flickered. Between 312 and 314 there was smooth paint, scarred by chairs and luggage corners, and the tails of coats. No door, no trim, no hinges. On my way back down I realized I could still hear the vibration of that latch somewhere inside my teeth. The next time someone asked, it was a man in a suit rumpled enough to tell the truth. He'd been in that suit for days. He smelled like either too much cologne or too many apologies. Is 313 open tonight? He said. When I told him no, he pushed a key onto the counter the way people in old movies push a photograph. It meant something. Brass oval tag, numbers rubbed away. To a bruise, my breath caught without my permission. Found this in the stairwell, he said, and smiled. Must have slipped somebody's mind. The brass was warm when I palmed it, warmer than it should have been for a dead metal untouched by the heater's lazy breath. It felt like the way a coin feels after it slept against your skin all day. I dropped it fast, and the sound it made when it hit the counter wasn't sharp like brass. It was damp, dull. Imagine a key dropped into the mouth of a well. I didn't ask Ellis about it. You think you'll ask when something like that happens. But then the night rolls in with its small tasks and smaller mercies, and you tell yourself a story about the story. And that's how you live with it. You should know something about me. Confession implies a sin. And if I'm telling you anything at all, it should be that. When I was 20, my little brother Oliver walked home from a party and didn't make it. It was raining, the kind of rain that sheets and silvers everything, so the whole world looks like a brand new coin. He called me, and I didn't answer because I was with someone I didn't want to explain to anyone. I told myself the call could wait. My phone lit up a second time, then a third, and on the fourth it stopped. In court later they used the word accident. In church later they used the word plan. I used the word sorry because it was the only available currency, and because sorry is a word you can spend over and over without ever getting change back. Ellis didn't know any of that when he hired me, but the motel did. I think the building knew because all buildings know their own. The way grocery stores know which pocket holds stolen cigarettes. The way some kitchens learn the names of the ghosts who never left the table. The first time I opened 313 was a Thursday, which is the loneliest night for a motel. Monday has business. Friday has escape. Thursday is the night you don't have any excuse left. The air outside had that cheap winter smell, like somebody somewhere had burned plastic. I'd had 3 cups of lobby coffee, and all 3 were waging a slow mutiny in my stomach. At 2:12 I heard footsteps on the second floor. The cameras turned. To snow. The little red recording light on the monitor winked, embarrassed, and went out. I took the ring of master keys, because the hallway had that feeling an old hotel trick when the carpet, and the wallpaper, and the air all agree, quietly with one another, that you are not invited. Between 312 and 314 there was a door. That sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but it's not. The wood was as plain as an apology. The knob was brass, a few degrees warmer than my hand. I didn't have to try the keys. The latch turned the way it turns when someone has just walked in and failed to latch it fully, and the door is breathing on the latch. In, out, waiting for a wind that won't come because it is all wind in there. The smell was strange. The way everyone says it is in old cases, and no one really believes them. Iron Wet magazine. That scent that freeway underpasses have. After rain, the room was staged as clean, but not clean the way Ellis means. Clean like a museum exhibits something dangerous. The bedspread was pulled tight enough to bounce a coin. The pillow had a dent that made my scalp prickle. On the nightstand, a rotary phone sat with its long spiral cord, doing lazy loops like a dead snake that hadn't realized it was dead yet. Across from the bed, a mirror hung in a gilded frame that did not belong to a motel designed by a man whose only taste was in linoleum dot. And in the nightstand drawerlet, so many letters, rubber-banded in stacks, wrapped in motel laundry receipts, in old envelopes, in a folded napkin from a diner that closed 10 years ago. Confessions, if you want to call them by their right name. Half were written with the deliberation of people carving their sins into bark. Half were written in the frantic upward slant of people trying to outrun something at the end of a line. They didn't have dates in the usual way. The dates they had were midnight, and 2:17, and first snow, and the day we didn't tell. I read until the black print on white paper began to crawl like ants, and my eyes made the letters into shapes they were never meant to be. I don't know when the phone started ringing. I only know that the sound crawled into the space between my ribs and stayed. I lifted the receiver, and there was only breath, not a prankster's breath. My own breath, my own rhythm, the private music your body plays that doesn't sound like music at all. I said hello twice, and the second hello was the one that answered me, which is a neat trick if you've never done it in the dark dot. At exactly 2:17 the alarm on my watch did not go off, because I had not set it. It went off anyway. The mirror made a decision. You know the small, damp shiver mirrors give themselves when they are older than they want to admit. Imagine that, but intentional. The glass trembled like a dog coming in from the rain, and for a second, I saw something that I've used 100 names for since, none of them right. It wasn't me, or it was me younger. Or it was me if I'd slept a year inside a motel blanket and learned to be thin. The mouth opened and closed as if practicing a new word, and then the lips said a word I knew too well: stay. I left in that ugly, wide-legged run we save for when dignity isn't on the table. I didn't take the letters. I didn't turn off the light. I didn't close the door. The door closed me. The latch kissed the strike plate in that damp way that makes the fillings at the back of your jaw say yes. I remember this. Yes, I was promised this sound. Yes, I will sleep with this sound again. Back at the desk, the register lay open. I don't know who opened it. I only know that it was open, and that on the line below, a name I didn't recognize, and above nothing there was my name, plain as courthouse paper, and the room number beside it, 313. Check-in time, 2:17 a.m. Check out, blank. I started shaking so hard the swivel chair made that high squeal that sounds like a modem trying to learn a secret. When the sun burned the glass to ordinary morning, I closed the ledger and I locked it in the drawer, and I told Ellis the lock jammed and we needed a new one, and he squinted at me like a man inspecting a dentist's bill, and then sighed like an uncle forgives you at Thanksgiving, and did not ask a single question. I could not answer. People think the scary thing is the first night. It isn't. The scary thing is the second night, when you know what the first night meant, and you show up anyway because your body has learned how to be furniture, and because you don't know what else to do. The lobby clock lost 6 minutes I never found. The vending machine returned to extra quarters that looked like they'd been buried and dug up and washed in milk. The cameras lost their feed whenever anyone stood in the seam of carpet between 312 and 314. I stopped watching the monitor. I watched the desk bell instead, because it was the only honest thing in the room. At 1:53, a woman I had never checked in came to the desk carrying her shoes like you carry a baby you're not sure wants to be touched. She was crying in that quiet way where tears Xerox the map of your face. "Do you have a pen?" she asked. "I need to write something down." I gave her a pen and the motel stationery with the phone number smudged from bad printing, and she wrote the way birds fly into windows. She folded the paper and put it in her mouth, and chewed and chewed and chewed until the edges softened, and then she swallowed and smiled like she had finally eaten the right thing, and went upstairs. The monitor cut to black. Every elevator in the world bing-bonged softly somewhere in my head. I heard the latch in a place no one else could have heard a latch. My own molars, HUMMED. Ellis, found me sleepy and stupid the next afternoon, and because he isn't a villain in this story, and because he is the kind of man who holds broken things as gently as he holds working ones, he set a mug of coffee in front of me and said, "You're not the first." I didn't ask him first what first meant. I asked him if I was fired. He didn't answer either question. He sat down in the squeaky chair like he had practiced the noise until it sounded like a song he could stand. "Derek worked nights before you," he said, and my skin prickled at the back where it meets the collar. "Nice boy. Walked his grandma's dog on his days off. Didn't have the stomach for drunks, but then neither do I. Came to me about 313. I told him we don't have one. He said he knew that. He was very polite about knowing that. He showed me names in the ledger, and I told him, same as I told you, that registries don't write themselves. He quit. This place isn't for everybody." "What happened to him?" I asked. When Ellis didn't answer, I looked down because sometimes the answer is in the floor, in carpet and stains, and the places we pretend not to see. The stain under the chair looked like something a heart leaves when it's done with its work. "Most do," he said after a while. "Most leave." That night I took a notebook up to 313. I told myself I would treat it like a broken light fixture. I would log what worked, what didn't, what flickered, what hummed. And then I would knock on Ellis's door at dawn and say a list of words in a calm voice, and he would take my notes and he would fix the part we could fix, and we would board up the part we couldn't. See how sane that sounds? People can speak any nonsense if they braid it into a report. The door was there. Of course it was. Of course it wasn't. The brass key came hot to my hand. The bed wore the same tight smile. The mirror had learned a new way to hold its breath. I sat at the desk and I wrote, 2:08 p.m. Entered 313. Smell, iron, wet paper. Temperature, colder by 4 degrees estimate, lobby 71. Mirror shows hallway for a second. No, that was my head. My head. My head. I put my pen down, and the sound it made was too loud. Listen, there are sounds the world knows how to make. A pen on wood, a door closing, a human sigh. And then there are sounds like the room made when I set the pen down. It wasn't loud, it was appropriate. It fit the moment the way a hymn fits a church. My hands were shaking again, and I pressed them flat against the desk, and the grain of the wood felt like a pulse. I don't mean metaphor, I mean the wood was doing its old tree work, moving water the way a throat moves regret. The phone rang, and it was my brother, not his voice, his breathing, the small stall of breath before, the laugh, the catch in his chest when he ran too far, the little whistle soft sound at the end of an exhale he used to blame on the shape of his nose. I said Ollie, and the line made a sound like a shirt pulled off in a hurry, and the cord went heavy, like it had learned the weight of something it didn't want to carry any more. Stay, said the mirror. And I did not look at it because I had learned that mirrors are very much like people in this way. They know when you are looking, and they prefer it, and if you don't give them the courtesy they will find other ways to make you see. At 2:17 the closet door opened. We don't have closets that open like that at Hillcrest. Our closets are grudging. Old wood that sighs on its track, and then accepts your wire hangers like it is doing you a favor. This door swung. The darkness inside wasn't black. Black is a color. This was an absence that felt like the room had torn something out of itself and invited me to watch it bleed. There was a corridor where the closet should have been. Not long, not short, exactly the length of a thing you can walk down. Without making a decision, I took 3 steps in and smelled rain and copper and not to be the church, the fabric smell of people sitting in the same place for a long time thinking about the same word. The corridor turned and the walls bulged and flexed the way long hallways do in dreams right before you wake yourself up by saying no. I didn't say no. I said Oliver, the way you say a name expecting the person to answer because you don't know what you'll do if they don't. Water dripped from somewhere without rhythm. I passed door after door with brass ovals the size of my palm, and on each oval the same numbers were etched, the metal worn shiny by hands, by heat, by the repetition that wears even bone. Smooth, 313, 313, 313. One door was ajar, and a voice whispered inside, and I knew that voice the way you know a scar by touch in the dark. It was me, not me now. Me then, 20 and cruel in all the ways love makes you cruel, saying not now into a phone, because my hands were somewhere I wanted more than I wanted to be kind to anyone else. Not now, not now, not now. Then sirens, then rain like applause, then the sound a mother makes when the world resets itself without asking her permission. I don't remember going back into the room. I remember the bedspread's tight skin. I remember the mirror holding itself like a man holds a cough. I remember the letters. I pulled the top one free, and it was a napkin from a diner with a logo of a chicken and the words best fried in a font no longer fashionable. On the napkin, black ink soaked into the cheap paper, so each line grew a halo, and the letters looked humid. The handwriting was careful and curved. It said, I am not confessing because I want to be forgiven. I am confessing because this room won't let me be anything else. I tried to laugh, and the laugh sounded like someone opening a bottle in a church basement. I wrote my name on a piece of Hillcrest stationery. I wrote, I let my brother walk. I wrote, I turned my phone face down. I wrote, I am sorry, I am sorry, I am sorry, until the words stopped being words. Then I folded the paper into a small, hard shape and put it under my tongue and chewed, until the edges softened and swallowed and waited to feel clean and did not. The corridor in the closet pulsed. The brass key warmed against my palm. The phone considered ringing and decided not to. The mirror made a small, happy sound. I turned toward the desk to add one more line to my notebook, and there, on the page where I had written temperature and mirror and closet and corridor, a line had appeared I had not written. It said, checkout time, 2:17. I did the worst thing you can do in any haunted place. I thought I understood the rules. I thought if I hurried I could close the ledger in the office before the ink dried and erase my name, and that would be the same as not being the person who wrote it. I ran. The hallway carpet rose and fell under my shoes like a sleeping thing. The sconce outside 311 sang. The scene between 312 and 314 tried to tell me a joke I didn't want to hear. The door at the end of the hall opened without being opened, and I slid down the last 5 steps because I have always been faster at falling. I threw myself behind the desk, and the ledger waited the way a pond waits for a body. My name was already there. The room number was exactly what it should have been. The time was 2:17, although the lobby clock said 2:12, and my watch said 2:19. And the wall calendar still had last month's picture of an Arizona canyon where the sky looked better than the ground. The space after checkout was blank. I tried to draw a line through my name. The pen snagged like the paper had learned a new texture. My hand shook, and the ink spidered, and the line I drew made a shape that made me think of something a heart. Leaves, and I put the pen down and wiped my mouth and tasted old paper. When Ellis came in at 6, he looked older, as if the night had tallied him up and found him wanting. He set coffee down. He did not look at the ledger. He did not ask me to explain. He said, "You should take the day." He said, "You've got the look." "What look?" I managed, and he smiled without his mouth. "The look people get when this place knows their name." I went home and slept, and dreamed of water that can't decide if it's river or road. I woke up at 2 in the afternoon with the sun making the blinds into jail bars on the wall, and my throat tasted like pennies. I told myself I would quit, and then I didn't. I told myself I would call my mother, and then I didn't. I told myself the next time the phone rang I wouldn't answer, and then I did. The voice on the other end was mine in 10 years with a cigarette habit. "Most do," it said, and I hung up and opened the ledger, and there, between one name I'd learned over coffee and one I'd never see again, was another name I recognized too well. Not mine, yours. I hated myself for writing this last part, and I hate myself for needing to. But the room places like this are greedy. They like to be the only one speaking. They also love a witness. I am making you mine so that it won't have me entirely. If you are reading, if you are listening, if this finds you because curiosity is a key you keep on your belt, then please skip the exit. If you can't skip the exit, don't ask for a room by number. If you ask, don't let them hand you anything brass. If you hold brass, don't hold it long. Brass remembers heat. It will know your hands. And if, at 2:17, you hear 3 soft knocks along a wall where a door isn't, and if your teeth ache, the way teeth ache when a latch kisses a strike plate in some deep, old part of the world, do not answer. Do not open. Do not press your ear to paint. The room is patient. The corridor is only as long as it needs to be. If you let the room speak your name, it will write the rest of the sentence without you. I'm going to put this recording where I put everything else that mattered in this building. The nightstand, top drawer, folded under a useless Gideon Bible that won't help anybody who actually needs help. I am going to lock the office and leave the ring of keys on the counter and write a note for Ellis that says thank you for the job, and a second note that says I'm sorry, and a third that says none of this is your fault. Then I am going to drive, and if the car turns toward exit 51 all on its own, I am going to keep my hands open, palms up, like a man surrendering to finally being understood. If you ever hear me in the mirror, the mouth opening and closing like a fish learning a word, know that I am trying to say leave. Know that what the room wants you to hear is stay. Know that there are letters in that drawer written in every hand you can imagine, and one of them is mine, and it says something like the truth, which is the best I can do. I didn't answer the call when my brother needed me. The room answered for me. The room always answers. It will answer you, too, if you let it. Hillcrest Motel, between 312 and 314, a door that isn't there until it is, a brass key that's too warm to be dead, a closet that opens into a corridor just the length of a decision, a mirror that wants to be looked at more than anything you've ever wanted, a phone that breathes when you can't. Check -in, 217, check out, blank.